Good afternoon. It's Sunday, the 17th of May. I'm Ariel O'Sullivan, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Jerusalem Day celebrations marking 48 years since the reunification of the city are well underway. At this hour, the annual Jerusalem Flag Parade is taking place. Some 60,000 Israelis from all across the country are marching through the capital, beginning from downtown and making their way to the Old City. The procession is also slated to pass through the Old City's Muslim quarter after a petition filed by left-wing groups to change the route was rejected by the High Court. Hundreds of policemen are deployed to secure the march, ahead of possible provocations or disturbances. Earlier in the day, hundreds flocked to the Western Wall to participate in a special prayer honoring Israel's sovereignty over the capital. Other festivities and ceremonies throughout the day included a special gathering hosted by Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat and his wife at the Tower of David Museum. Dignitaries also attended the annual memorial service at Mount Herzl for those who fell during the 1967 Six-Day War, which led to the reunification of the city. Events will culminate later this evening with the annual state ceremony at Ammunition Hill in the presence of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, President Reuven Rivlin, and Mayor Barkat. The ceremony can be seen live on Channel 1 tonight at 7:30. Turning to the new government, and the annual memorial honoring Ethiopian Jews who died on their journey to Israel was held today, attended by Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Rivlin. Also, the new ministers moved into their offices. Here with more is IBA's political correspondent, Eli Wogelenter.
At the ceremony held at the Mount Herzl Cemetery in Jerusalem this morning, Prime Minister Netanyahu said he would form a special ministerial committee this week to address all issues of discrimination and racism. We will bring a comprehensive plan to the government to assist you in every way, the Prime Minister said. There is no room for racism and discrimination in our society, none. Netanyahu also pledged to turn racism into something contemptible and despicable. There are societies that have succeeded in rising above this filth. And President Reuven Rivlin also spoke at the ceremony, saying Israel did not do enough for Ethiopians in Israel. We didn't see, we didn't act correctly, and we did not listen enough, Rivlin said. However, in addition to our need for criticism and recognizing our wrongs, it is incumbent upon us to believe in our ability to correct. The State of Israel cannot allow the best of its sons and daughters to feel that they are disconnected and alienated. Meanwhile, today's cabinet meeting was postponed until Tuesday, and the traditional photo of ministers at the president's residence will also take place only later this week. In the meantime, today was moving-in day for the new ministers. Immigration and Absorption Minister Zev Elkin vowed to tackle the problem of discrimination against Ethiopian Jews as his first item of business. Israeli society's attitude toward immigrants in general, and Ethiopians in particular, is patronizing, Elkin said. At the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, a ceremony was held to mark the passing of the ministerial baton between outgoing Minister Yair Shamir and the incoming Minister Uri Ariel. Said Ariel, the people who are in the ministry and in the additional departments are the true power and strength to realize the ministry's vision. The vision, as worded by the outgoing minister, is correct and fitting, and we shall continue down this road to promote the issues that the ministry is in charge of. Ariel passed the baton himself at the Ministry of Construction, handing over the reins to the new minister, Yoav Gallant. Ariel said that when he came to the ministry 2 years ago, he faced an extraordinary challenge because of housing prices. We accomplished what others did not believe could be done and achieved an all-time record of over 50,000 units, which were sold in 2014, Ariel said, adding that Gallant should continue his initiative together with other additional programs. As for the new cabinet, Likud MK Tzachi Hanegbi said that he finds it hard to believe the narrow 61 MK government will last its mandated term of 4.5 years. 2 or 3 years is possible, but only if we widen the government within 2 months, he said. I think most ministers, many more than who are unhappy, are satisfied. Likud received 12 out of 20 cabinet ministers. I don't recall anything like this, and I've been in the Knesset since 1988. And he acknowledged that he was more than disappointed not to be named a minister in this government, but that sometimes difficulties require concessions. If I thought only about myself, I'd be raving, feeling miserable, and crying foul play. But because I cared about the Prime Minister's success and Likud's success, I volunteered to work hard and suffer for a year. Hanegbi was appointed coalition chairman and head of the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, and was promised by Netanyahu that he and Minister Ofer Akunis would switch roles after a year. Aryeh?
Thanks, Eli, for that report. 48 years after the Six-Day War, which reunified the Holy City, Jerusalem has the country's largest population with more than 830,000 residents. An estimated 62% are Jewish and of other religions, and nearly 40% are Arabs. Over one-third of the capital's Jewish population belong to the ultra-Orthodox community. 30% are national religious, and the rest are secular. Last week, Mayor Nir Barkat published a 5-year plan aimed at encouraging economic growth in the city, which includes the development of an artist quarter in the city's center and further investment in infrastructure by the end of 2020. Well, joining us now in honor of Jerusalem Day is former Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Naomi Tzur. Naomi, thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon. Happy Jerusalem Day.
Happy Jerusalem Day to you. Do you think enough is being done to protect the quality of life in Jerusalem toward a sustainable future?
I think we have to take a perspective on Jerusalem Day. In 1967, the city was united, and we were given an opportunity. It was an opportunity to develop a city that could be shared by all the diverse cultures and populations. And this is not an easy thing to achieve. And I think the question we have to ask ourselves, not only on Jerusalem Day, but every day, is are we doing enough to make sure the city develops as much as it can to be sustainable both economically but also environmentally and socially? I believe that the social and environmental aspects of development in Jerusalem have been not sufficiently developed. What we have to celebrate on Jerusalem Day, I think, are the achievements that have been made. For instance, I'll give some simple examples. I think the railway park, for instance, in Jerusalem, a wonderful project and not an expensive project, which brings neighbourhoods together, enables the different populations of the city to meet each other, biking, walking, jogging, in a wheelchair, whatever suits them. It's an equalising route and a route shared by the communities. Jerusalem has just celebrated the opening of Israel's first urban nature park.
That's right, the Gazelle Park.
The Gazelle Park, which was a fight, a civic battle that was conducted until the city embraced it and turned it into this wonderful park, which is now open for all. So I think the focus for Jerusalem has to be on making the public domain accessible for all, shared by all, and everyone to be more tolerant and accepting of the other. We have a wonderful opportunity here. We have freedom of worship, freedom of movement in the public domain. We have billions of people around the world who see Jerusalem as the most important spiritual destination. We must welcome them.
And yet, Naomi, you know, this is a multicultural city with many tribes, secular, ultra-Orthodox, Muslim, Christians. Is this a united city?
I believe that as a city, it's united. When it comes to the struggle between sovereignties, who's in charge, who's in control, I think then we get into trouble. Which part of the city belongs to who? Are we a divided city or a united city? From the point of view of urban daily life in the city of Jerusalem, we're a united city because people from different parts of the city use different services in other parts of the city. So I think what we have to look ahead to is not where we think the line should be drawn or not be drawn, but we have to think of a united urban reality, whatever the geopolitical reality in the future.
Jerusalem is a tourist destination for the whole world. What has to be done to make more tourists come here? Perhaps the pilgrims, people who don't have facilities for them.
It's no secret that I have been deeply concerned with this. I've been involved in an international movement of developing the concept of green and sustainable pilgrimage. And the reason I went into that whole adventure is because this is such a wonderful and suitable platform for Jerusalem, which is a spiritual destination for the three monotheistic faiths. And this has, of course, caused all the trouble down the centuries. But the art of entrepreneurship is thinking out of the box and taking what was the cause of tragedy and bloodshed and turning it into the opportunity for the future. And that is why, joined by many friends and colleagues, I have recently established the Jerusalem Green Fund, which is going to promote all the initiatives that can make the public domain in Jerusalem greener, cleaner and healthier, but for all its communities.
Well, Naomi Tzur, the former Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, thanks for joining IBA News today.
It's a
happy
pleasure.
Jerusalem
Happy
Day.
Jerusalem Day.
Several cities in the south today staged a solidarity strike with the workers of the Israel Chemicals to protest the poor state of employment in the Negev region. In Dimona, Arad, and Yerucham, city services shut down and some schools were closed. The protest is designed to draw national attention to the rising unemployment in the working-class towns where strings of layoffs at large factories have shaken the local economy. There have been firings at Israel Chemicals and the Dead Sea Works, with union representatives at the companies pressing for early voluntary retirement for older employers instead of firings. Political leaders in the South are calling for the government to invest more money in developing the region and creating more jobs in an area which has faced thousands of layoffs in recent years. There were disruptions today in high schools in Netanya, Ashkelon, Kiryat Ono, Upper Nazareth, and Shar HaNegev as a result of the Parents Association's protest against steps taken by the Ministry of Education following the leak of matriculation exams. The High School Students Association announced that it was opposed to the disruptions because they interfere with preparations for matriculation exams. The parents opposed an edict by the Education Ministry which requires that students be required to be in their classrooms and wait at least 45 minutes before the start of their matriculation exam. Rabbi Moshe Levinger, a founding father of the settlement movement, was laid to rest today in the Jewish cemetery in Hebron after passing away over Shabbat at the age of 81. He is survived by 11 children and 50 grandchildren. Levinger led the return of the Jewish settlement in Hebron in 1968. The founding of the adjacent Kiryat Arba, and beginning in 1975 was a founding member of the Settlers Yesha Council. Prime Minister Netanyahu called the family to express his condolences. In 1988, Levinger shot and killed a Palestinian man and wounded a second man after Arab stone throwers attacked his car. Levinger was convicted of causing death by negligence and served a 3-month jail sentence. He later ran for a seat in the Knesset in 1992, but lost. In the Vatican, Pope Francis has canonized 2 nuns from the 19th century Palestine. Sisters Miriam Baudi and Mary Alphonsine Gattas were among 4 nuns who were made saints today at a mass in St. Peter's Square. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas was among some 2,000 Palestinians who were on hand for the canonization of the first 2 saints from the Holy Land since the Middle Ages. Sister Gattas was the founder of the Most Holy Rosary of Jerusalem and died in 1927. Sister Baudry founded the Carmelite convent in Bethlehem, and she passed away in 1878. Church officials are holding up the new saints as a sign of hope and encouragement for Christians of the Middle East at a time when violent persecution and discrimination has driven many to leave the region. The canonization ceremony was not directly connected with the Vatican's announcement on Wednesday that it recognizes the Palestinian state, but Abbas and Pope Francis met and held talks yesterday, with the Pope referring to the Palestinian leader as an angel of peace, and urged him to renew efforts to find peace with Israel. The leader of Lebanon's Shiite group says Sunni extremists have been pushed out of large areas of the strategic Kalamoun region along the Lebanese-Syrian border in fighting over the past week. This, according to Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, who said in a televised speech last night that these fighters in alliance with Syrian government forces have seized large swaths of the Kalamoun region. The Iranian-backed Shiite group and Syrian troops are battling both Islamic State group and Nusra Front, an al-Qaeda affiliate. The mountain range is close to Syria's capital, Damascus, and links it to the coastal heartland of President Bashar Assad's Alawite sect. Nasrallah said 13 Hezbollah fighters and 7 Syrian soldiers have been killed in Kalamoun over the past week, although other sources say the numbers are much higher and include a senior Hezbollah commander. In a rare ground attack deep into Syria, U.S. Army commandos killed a man described as Islamic State's head of oil operations, captured his wife, and rescued a woman whom American officials said was enslaved. A U.S. defense official said a team of Delta Force commandos slipped across the border from Iraq under cover of darkness last night aboard Black Hawk helicopters and V-22 Osprey aircraft. The Americans intended to capture a gunman identified as Abu Sayyaf. When they arrived at the location, they met stiff resistance, and a firefight ensued, resulting in bullet hole damage to one of the U.S. aircraft. Abu Sayyaf was killed along with an estimated dozen Islamic State fighters, U.S. officials said. No American was killed or wounded. Before the sun had risen, the commandos flew back to Iraq, where Abu Sayyaf's wife, Sayyaf, was being questioned in U.S. custody. Officials say the goal of the mission was to gain intelligence about Islamic State operations and about hostages they are holding. Elsewhere in Syria, Turkish forces shot down a Syrian helicopter after it crossed into Turkish airspace, the country's defense minister said. But Syrian state-run television denied the report, saying that it was a small drone that was shot down. Turkish Defense Minister İsmet Yilmaz said the helicopter was brought down after it crossed into Turkish airspace for 5 minutes and was more than 10 kilometers into Turkish territory. The incident is the second time since last year that Turkey has brought down a Syrian aircraft. The United States is deeply concerned about an Egyptian court decision to seek the death penalty for former President Mohamed Morsi. The U.S. State Department criticism follows condemnations from Amnesty International and Turkey after a court ruling yesterday. The ruling is not final until June 2nd, as all capital sentences are referred to the Egyptian Mufti and are subject to legal appeal. Oscar-winning Israeli actress Natalie Portman is at the Cannes Film Festival and walked the red carpet ahead of the screening of A Tale of Love and Darkness, which marks her debut as a director. The film is based on the memoir by Israeli author Amos Oz and recounts his childhood in war-torn Jerusalem in the 1940s and 50s, his mother's death, and the birth of a nation. Actors Gilad Kahana and Amir Tesler and producer Ram Bergmanat joined Portman on the red carpet. Here's a clip from the film.
היו שני נזירים שקיבלו על עצמם כל מיני איסורים. בין השאר, הם גזרו על עצמם לחצות ברגל את כל ארץ הודו, מקצה לקצה. הם גם גזרו על עצמם בדידות מוחלטת. לא לפלוט אפילו מתוך שינה, אף
A lot of fun. Taking a look at local finance, and with no currency trading on Sundays, the shekel remains the same, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were up. Here's a look at the afternoon numbers. The IBA weather team is telling us that the Sharav desert heat wave will continue tomorrow and stay with us for the next few days. Try to stay cool. Here's the forecast at home and abroad over the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this evening. Erin Viner will be at this desk tomorrow at 4 o'clock to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. Please join her. Until then, I'm Ariel O'Sullivan wishing you a great evening and shalom from Jerusalem.